"Come on, geezer," is the catchphrase of David, repeatedly spouted throughout the 2 stings when confronted about communicating with underage child decoys. 9 days later. This is very uncommon, but in David's case he was confronted 9 days after the initial sting for communicating with the very same decoys that he had previously been arrested for chatting with. 33. Throughout the first sting, David repeatedly insists that the girl who he was speaking to was not 13, but 33 years of age. This is disproven as the chat logs include David asking her to wear her school uniform, and asks the child to sneak out to stay overnight with him in Blackpool. Denial. Throughout both stings, David repeatedly tells the enforcers that he was not chatting to underage individuals, and goes as far as to blame his own brother for his actions. David's personal hygiene is discussed in both stings, with the team complaining of a putrid odor when stood closely to him. One member of the team tells him to bathe at the police station. David changes his name a lot. The team find 2 separate accounts, under the names of David Jenkins and James DeVere, but his true name was revealed to be David Holland at the end of the first sting. Mr. Jenkins has a habit of pestering countless women on Facebook Messenger, many of the chats resulting in no reply and a string of messages from David with no answer. This is uncovered by the team when they go through his device. David was sentenced to 40 months in prison, but he states that he expected to return to prison in the second sting. It is apparent that David is an alcoholic. His facial features, most notably his enlarged purple nose, indicates heavy alcohol abuse, and he states that he is, quote, always fucking drunk. This is, however, no excuse for his behavior, often blaming the booze and stating he has no idea who he was talking to online. When David's device is searched in the first sting, the team uncover chat logs from other potential decoys or children, which David claims are his girlfriends. Amber is the supposed, quote, future wife of David when questioned on her identity. Upon further inspection of his device, it is apparent that she does not return his messages or calls, and talks to himself once again much like the other girls on his Facebook Messenger. Seconding this, David states to the team that he talks to people in China, Indonesia, Holland, and all over the world. Yogi, David's brother, acknowledges David was talking to an unknown woman in Taiwan whilst Yogi was out of the house. Max is the good friend of David, who allows him to use his device following the second sting to continue talking on Facebook. This foolish decision leads to David's second sting and arrest, and Max is said to have blocked the underage girls that David was speaking to. Max is implicitly blamed on the second sting, but then David changes his story to fix Yogi as the ultimate perpetrator. Yogi hands over his devices during the first sting, which David was also frequently using. This uncovers David's chat logs with the decoy and many other people. Although David blamed Yogi of stitching him up, as he says in his own words, there was zero evidence of this and David was found guilty on all charges. David has a long history of being imprisoned, stating that he had been to prison 6 or more times, and that he had been to HMP Bullingdon. The reasons for this include assault and threats. David ultimately ends up back in prison after both stings take place. David claims that Yogi hates him in the second sting, stating that they had a huge falling out years ago over an unknown incident. Since this, David states that Yogi has been trying to get him locked up, which is why he comes to the conclusion that he is being set up by his brother. Yogi brands David a, quote, pedophile cunt during the second sting, and implies that he will brutalize David after the sting has concluded. Some comments on YouTube have speculated that David may actually have wet brain, medically known as WKS, caused by excessive drinking and alcohol abuse. This potentially affects David and causes lapses in memory, as he often states he can't remember who he was speaking to, meaning this is a real possibility to consider. However, no matter what condition David may have, it is absolutely no excuse for his actions, and should have no effect in a court of law. In the first sting, David states that he has 3 daughters aged 13, 17, and 18. However, less than 60 seconds later, in an attempt to reinforce this lie, he muddles up the made-up ages and reiterates that they are 18, 22, and 25. This is an obvious example of his many lies and deceptive tactics to confuse the team, which they do not fall for. David states that his eyesight is extremely poor in the second sting, stating that his retinas have rotten away and he could barely see the picture of the child decoy. This is proven wrong as he can clearly see the keyboard and the messages to reply to the decoy, not mentioning the countless other accounts he interacts with on Facebook Messenger. During the second sting, David tells the team his plan of getting a job and making money, claiming a friend called Barry is getting him a job painting cars. This is doubted by the team members as he would be unemployable due to his alcoholism. David states that he has no money when asked by members of the team. He counts the change in his pocket totaling to less than £1, and states that he has £3.13 in his bank account. When asked who buys his cigarettes, David states that his mother purchases them. It comes to light that David has 4 different SIM cards and a cheap throwaway phone during the second sting. This highlights his nefarious actions and is extremely suspicious, implying other criminal activities are taking place. The team find out that David and Yogi served time in prison together when they were younger. Their time in prison was not enjoyable for the pair, as they regularly fought in the prison cell that they shared, and did not get along behind bars, likely not sticking together and having many problems with each other during their sentences. Following the first sting, the team discover that David was planning to purchase a fake passport and flee the country, going to live with a friend elsewhere. The country is never stated outright, but David denies these allegations and says that he is taking care of his mother and would not be leaving the country. David fleeing the country would mean he avoids going to court and probably jail time, but this plan is ultimately foiled by the team. David tells several members of the team that 2 years prior to the stings, Yogi told the people in the area that David was and a 16-year-old girl were engaging in sexual activities. David and Yogi's mother confronted the girl in question, who told her that the whole story was fabricated and that David was innocent. David's mother proceeded to slap Yogi around the face for lying, but Yogi was confused and allegedly drunk during the altercation. Whether or not this story is true is uncertain, but is most likely a ploy by David to divert attention away from himself, once again blaming his brother even when every piece of evidence points towards himself. During the second sting, David tells the team of his wife and child in Cyprus, claiming that they are both deceased. When the team ask his parents about this, they both claim that it is untrue. This is one of the most disturbing lies that David tells during the stings, and shows how far he will go to defend himself. Dave Jr. was the supposed child of David that passed away. David claims he was hit by a drunk driver in Hounslow, London, and was killed. He first says he died at 5 years old, but an hour or so later says that he died at 3 years old, which shows that this story is most likely fictitious, and leaves the team and everyone else questioning why David would fabricate such a lie. When the team defend Yogi and state that he is a decent man, David shuts this down with a story about how Yogi was sent to prison for 6 years for trying to kill his wife. He claims that Yogi stabbed her in the neck with a pen, served 6 years in prison, and lost access to his children. He follows up by saying that he is not a nice guy, and that he has a hatred for David. This is questioned by the team, but the truth is never revealed. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to my subscribers and commenters for making this possible. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and we will catch you later.